Right off the bat, both of these movies may tell the same story, but they are completely different animals. So, I will treat this like a competition with the following categories: writing, acting, special effects, music, and style. Writing. As I reviewed both movies, I've concluded that they are trying to tell an epic tale that just isn't friendly for films. So much happens out of randomness, coincidence, or chance, which makes each scene lose consistency of what's being shown. We don't feel any relation to the characters because they are constantly being influenced by forces beyond their control. The action scenes in the remake take up the most time and money, so they spend more time on letting you know that these action shots are cool and entertaining rather than what it's doing for the story. The scenes where they fight the scorpions for 10 minutes don't reveal anything about the characters other than that Perseus knows how to use a sword after just 3 minutes of training. The original definitely takes its time with each scene, whether it's dialogue, action, suspense, or just showing more about the characters. When they fight the scorpions, the scene is more about what is going on in the background, since the fight is a distraction from the main villain so he can keep Perseus from saving Andromeda in time. The action serves a purpose for the plot. The motivation for Perseus to go on his epic quest is drastically different from each movie. In the original, Perseus wins the heart of Andromeda, who is then commanded to be a sacrifice by a god. This motivates Perseus to complete his quest out of love. In the remake, Perseus is angry that Hades killed his adopted family, so he completes his quest out of revenge. Out of the two motivations, the audience relates more with love rather than revenge, since the revenge is oriented around a family that didn't have enough time to establish an emotional connection. You need to take the time to let the viewers invest themselves in the characters and the plot. Acting. It's funny because the lead actors playing Perseus are both blockheads. They both have the emotional depth of a brick. The original actor is primarily stage acting, except for his facial expressions, which stay vaguely perplexed and confused. The remake actor is reminding you that his character is angry, brutish, badass, even though he is supposed to have been raised by a fisherman. Out of the two, though, I would have to give the point to the remake, since he has a few moments of charisma where the original just reads his lines. As for Zeus, they are both played by epic actors, but the original seems to be more understood as a flawed god who commands authority. The remake surrounds Zeus with distracting elements that take away from who the character is supposed to be depicted as. As for line delivery, the point goes to Liam Neeson, hands down.
Release the Kraken!
Release the Kraken.
I guess it's a tie for Zeus. Andromeda is a main character in the original, but in the remake she's just a plot pawn. That point easily goes to the original. The villains are different in each movie. The original keeps it simplified with Calibos, who is the son of a god that was cursed by Zeus. The remake muddles it up with Hades, who hires the Hunchback King, who are both mad at Zeus, so they both want to kill Perseus. And they also throw in some cult lunatic that is confusingly and pointlessly a bad guy for Andromeda and the Kingdom of Argos. I gotta give this point to the original. Special effects. As for the creatures, the original had the legendary talents of Ray Harryhausen, who was able to bring mythical creatures to life back in the 70s and 80s through revolutionary stop-motion effects. Without his talents, I don't think we would have the imagination of CGI today. The main creatures were the Pegasus, Medusa, a large vulture, scorpions, a two-headed dog, and the Kraken. The remake surprisingly only throws in a few creatures: demon bats, super-sized scorpions, rock aliens, Medusa, a black Pegasus, and the Kraken. I will give this one a tie since both the movies bringing creatures to life took a lot of work and skill for their times, but they both made the creatures believable enough. The original used many set pieces and a few green screen moments that stick out like a sore thumb. The remake stays consistent with blending both practical sets and CGI environments. That point goes to the remake. Music. This one goes to the original by a landslide. It's like adding John Williams to Superman, Jurassic Park, Harry Potter, Jaws, Indiana Jones, and E.T., which made those movies extremely nostalgic, lively, and immersive. The original uses the talents of a real orchestra that swells the music in different scenes that guides the audience with how to feel in those moments. The remake just shoves in some loud tones during action schlock and forgettable music throughout. The point goes to the original. Style. One major difference between these two movies is the age of style. Modern-day action films are more style over substance, which risks distracting the audience from the story. Unfortunately, audiences today are so desensitized by the CGI and graphics that we lose connection to what good stories are, and are more focused on the flashy components that should only serve as a support for the story, not a replacement. Looking back on older movies like the original triggers most people to just dismiss it as dated, rather than accept the movie from when it was made and what was put into it. Back in the days where producers and studios had guts to take on projects and stories with no promise of profit, but today, people will make anything if there's a whiff of profit. The original definitely makes several attempts to impress from its era, but it still follows the older Hollywood style, where the scenes are more focused on what is being said rather than what is being shown. For example, most of the scenes in the movie are flat shots of the characters delivering the dialogue, where the viewer has no choice but to listen to what is being said rather than be distracted with the camera movement, flashy set pieces, or unnecessary CGI. I learned more of the story from the original than from the remake, so the point for style goes to them. In summary, telling the story of Perseus is difficult. Do you stay consistent with the epic tale at the risk of alienating moviegoers, or do you compromise the story for the sake of style? If anything, I think the comparison of these two movies only shows that substance over style will always be a better choice for storytelling. Why make a movie if it will only follow modern trends that only make it blend in with everything else that's coming out in theaters? It just destines it to be forgettable. The original took guts and made something that no one had ever seen before. It may have not been groundbreaking cinema, but it still made its point of telling its story. It's just too bad that that point is primarily lost on today's cinema culture.